Hello, dear friends. Let's talk about problems of Opel Insignia. The Insignia will satisfy you with a good choice of engines. The petrol base consists of two well-known engines, 1.6 liters and 1.8 liters, with a power of 85 kilowatts, 155 Nm, and 103 kilowatts, 175 Nm respectively. Both engines are taken from the Vectra C model and have undergone significant upgrades. Major technical innovations include variable valve timing, variable length, variable intake manifolds, with rotary cover instead of valve, and a new crankshaft sensor. The variable valve opening time is regulated by an electrohydraulic actuator. The camshaft of the intake valves rotates by 60 degrees. The shaft of the exhaust valves rotates by 45 degrees. Variable opening and exhaust valve opening times optimize the charging and discharging of the combustion chambers in all driving modes. Compared to its predecessor, the engines show better torque over a wider range of speeds, lower exhaust emissions, lower fuel consumption, and less noise. In practice, both engines are characterized by cultivated and quiet operation, and reliability is also higher. The weaker 1.6 16V A16XER, in line with its dynamics, is for less demanding drivers for predominantly shorter journeys. Lack of power is manifested, especially when overtaking at higher speeds or when more people are driving in the vehicle. As for consumption, it is about 7.5 to 8 liters. Frequent driving in the city or fast driving on the highway can raise consumption to 9 liters. A slightly better dynamics, especially at lower engine speeds, is provided by the 1.8 16V A18CER engine, while the consumption of the 1.6 engine is slightly higher and is on average about 8 liters. The basic petrol turbo engine is for a 4-cylinder 1.4 turbo with 103 kilowatts and 200 Nm of torque, and enjoy a cultivated ride and good sound insulation. At lower engine speeds, engine power is low. Engine power gradually increases, power comes above 2000 rpm, and full engine power is about 3000 rpm. Consumption largely depends on the engine load, driving dynamics. With a quieter ride, a consumption of around 7 liters can be achieved, but in practice, the average is around 8 and 5 liters. Dynamic driving means a consumption of 10 or more liters. Another turbocharged petrol engine on offer is a 4-cylinder 1.6 with a power of 132 kilowatts and a torque of 213 Nm. The engine does a very good job in models like the Astra or Corsa, but in the nearly 5-meter long and weighing about 1.6 tons, Insignia 1.6 turbo engine proves to be much more. This is especially true for lower engine speeds, and the engine comes to lift around 1600 rpm, and a significant part of the dynamics comes after 3000 rpm. At higher revs, the engine has no problems, and passenger will also enjoy the sporty sounds. The disadvantage is that the consumption largely depends on the engine load. With more economical driving, the consumption is on average about 8 liters, real about 9 liters. During dynamic driving, the consumption goes up to about 12-15 liters. It should also be noted that the two engines, 1.4 turbo and 1.6 turbo, work best with gasoline with a higher octane number 98 or more. With regular gasoline, the engine also runs The electronics regulate the combustion process, and resulting dynamic performance is somewhat poorer. The 1.6-liter four-cylinder turbo engine replaced the 1.6-liter turbo CD spark ignition direct injection, with an output of 125 kilowatts and 147 kilowatts, respectively, and a torque of 260 newton meters and 280 newton meters, respectively. Its design, two versions, almost identical, and differences are different turbine and higher turbine pressure level in the more powerful version. The weaker version, on the other hand, had higher compression ratio of 10:5, 1 instead of 9:5, 1 in the stronger version. Of course, the engine drive is different, and due to the different compression ratio, minor adjustments have touched the combustion space. Both engines have a cast iron block and aluminum cylinder head with a variable opening of all valves. Exhaust valves work in two-stage variable stroke, which provides better emptying of the combustion chamber. The turbocharger is cooled by coolant in both versions. The sophistication is improved by a pair of rotating shafts driven by a special chain. The motor drive is via a chain. Consumption is similar to a smaller 1.4 turbo engine, largely depending on driving style, but it is about 8.5 liters, with more economical driving consumption is about 7 liters. On the other hand, climbs to 10 liters when driving faster on the highway or when driving frequently in the city. Even for this engine, it is better to pour gasoline with more octane, not only in terms of driving dynamics, but also because of the longer service life, less accumulation of dangerous deposits in the engine. 2.0-liter turbocharged engine with 162 kilowatts and 350 newton meters of torque. In addition to direct petrol injection, the engine is equipped with a variable opening of the intake and exhaust valves. The exhaust ducts are separated separately for the outer and inner cylinders and are connected near the turbocharger. The engine meets a wide range of useful speeds and has a lot of power even at lower revs. The best dynamics is around 3000 RPM, with a slight drop in dynamics startling after 5000 RPM. Consumption is again largely dependent on engine load, although less significantly than the smaller 1.4 and 1.6 turbo. This is mainly due to significantly higher force at lower revs and less need for frequent gear changes. With a little effort, efficient driving is possible with an average fuel consumption of around 9 liters per 100 kilometers. However, with more dynamic driving, the consumption is around 11-12 liters. With a heavy foot, it goes up to 15 liters and more gasoline. As in the case of the smaller 1.4 turbo and 1.6 turbo, the use of 98-octane gasoline or high-quality additives is recommended. More octane gasoline largely eliminates the formation of deposits on the intake valves and the engine itself, which makes the direct injection engine more prone. Top and very rare petrol turbo aluminum engine 2.8 turbo V6, which reaches 191 kilowatts and a torque of 400 newton meters in a wide range of speeds 1900 to 4500 RPM. The cylinders are at an angle of 60 degrees. The engine is equipped with variable intake valve control and includes separate lines for each row of cylinders that are connected just before the turbocharger. They provide fast response and sufficient torque from the lowest engine speeds. In practical, the engine really has enough power for fast dynamics driving, no matter how many people or luggage there are in the car. The engine will also be in very cultivated and quieter operation. However, the disadvantage is the higher operating costs. Namely, the consumption below 10 liters will be only in very quiet driving. The reality is somewhere around 12 to 13 liters. More frequent driving in the city or fast driving on the highway, and consumption goes above 15 liters. A special chapter is the Insignia OPC, which is designed for sports driving enthusiasts. It will definitely appreciate a top speed of 150 kilometers per hour, an acceleration of 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 6 seconds. Under the hood, the 6-cylinder 2.8 V6 is set at 239 kilowatts with a maximum torque of 435 Nm. High per strut is set as standard on the front axle. The suspension system is flag ride, which has 3 levels of adjustments: standard, sport, and OPC. The 4-wheel drive system of Adaptive 4X4 is complemented by an electronically controlled differential. The disc brake is produced Brembo. The Insignia OPC also differs from the standard version in appearance. In addition to aggressively shaped bumpers, the OPC has a standard 19 wheels with dimensions of 245/40 or even 20 with 255/35 tires. The interior is dominated by Recaro sports seats. Until 2015, 2.0 CDTI is available in several versions. The weakest version, 2.0 CDTI, has a maximum power of 81 kilowatts and a torque of 260 Nm, a medium 96 kilowatts and 300 Nm, and the strongest 118 kilowatts and 350 Nm. The engine has a pair of camshafts driven by the toothed belt and turbocharger with variable blade geometry. The engine accelerates at low speeds. A significant increase in power comes to about 1,800 RPM and lasts up to around 3,500 RPM. Engine speed about 3,500 RPM. It doesn't make much sense because the engine gradually weakens, significantly increasing noise as well as consumption. The weakest 81 kilowatts version will satisfy only the quieter drivers. The more powerful 96 kilowatts and especially the 118 kilowatts version goes better with the 1.7-ton Insignia. The engine noise is at a pretty good level. Consumption average about 6.5 to 7 liters. 2.0 CDTI EcoFlex is also available. The vehicle has a redesigned aerodynamic body, a standard stop-start system, low rolling resistance tires, and a number of other settings optimizing final consumption. Electronic process control the mixture ignition, the combustion system adjusts fuel injection in the current driving conditions. The system estimates the combustion pressure in each cylinder individually, using piezoelectric sensors, and based on this data, adjusts the volume and timing of fuel injection in each cylinder. Because it is a green engine, the system takes into account various changes during the life of the unit. Increased engine wear, tolerance of engine parts, variable fuel quality or changes in time. To maintain the lowest consumption and exhaust emissions. Attention is drawn to the rare but interesting version of the 2.0 CDTI bi-turbo, with a maximum power of 140 kilowatts or 143 kilowatts and a torque of 400 Nm. thanks to the presence of two turbochargers of different size. The engine gives a very decent thrust from low speeds to about 5000 rpm. Consumption averaged about 7 liters. In the second half of 2014, the 2.0 CDTI engine was significantly redesigned and is available in the following power versions: 2.0 CDTI 81 kilowatts / 260 Nm, 2.0 CDTI EcoFlex 88 kilowatts / 300 Nm, 2.0 CDTI 96 kilowatts / 309 Nm, 2.0 CDTI EcoFlex 103 kilowatts / 350 Nm, 2.0 CDTI 120 kilowatts / 350 Nm, and 2.0 CDTI Biturbo 143 kilowatts / 400 Nm. The engines have a new head, new intake ducts, combustion zones, injection with a puppy at a pressure of up to 2000 bar, up to 1600 bar. The variable turbine is adjusted electronically, which means a faster engine response compared to previous turbines that used a vacuum control system, a water-cooled turbine. To meet emission standards, the Euro 6 engine 2.0 CDTI was assisted by a blue injection system with selective catalytic SCR and AdBlue are injected into the exhaust to eliminate nitrogen oxides. In practice, redesigned engines are quieter and more cultivated. Overall driving dynamics are slightly better and the average consumption is less. Since 2015, a smaller 4-cylinder 1.6 CDTI diesel has come under the hood of the Insignia, available in 288 kilowatts and 100 kilowatts versions respectively, with an identical maximum torque of 320 Nm. The engine meets the Euro 6 standards thanks to blue injection SCR, selective catalytic reduction technology, with AdBlue injection into the exhaust gas. The engine drive is a maintenance-free chain, but located on the side of the transmission, which in the case of potential replacement is a big deal. In actual operation, the engine is quiet. The engine starts to pull up at about 1500 rpm, with a more pronounced thrust felt from around about 1800 rpm and about 3500 rpm, and then gradually reduced dynamics. At maximum speeds, the engine spins at 90 km per hour at 1500 rpm and at 130 km per hour at just 2300 rpm. Thanks to a well-rated 6-speed gearbox, solid elasticity and a willingness to pull at lower engine speeds, driving this engine is enjoyable. The engine add-on is also an average fuel economy of about 5.5 liters, and off-road driving can reduce fuel consumption to 4 and 5 liters. And even with highway speeds, it does not typically exceed 7 liters of engine. In the case of the Insignia, the most common is a 6-speed manual transmission. There is also a classic 6-speed automatic transmission. Probably the most common drawback that Insignia owners complain about is the noise inside. Noise increases with increasing mileage. Most of the sounds came from the center panel, from the steering wheel, the instrument panel, but also the armrests, the plastic around the mirrors and windows, the door and bracket panels. From the point of view of driving reliability, this is just a detail, but it can be quite disgusting to this driver. After the upgrade, the build quality improved and the sounds dropped significantly. The Insignia often encounters interference in AFL intelligent lights. Sometimes it helps to install a new program, sometimes it just replaces the control unit. Occasionally there is a dimming of the rear view mirror, dimming without a lighted vehicle behind it. Electronic malfunctions still include a Bluetooth switch, parking assist, locking often a problem, or problems with seat heating. In the case of petrol engines, problems with engine electronics or excessively worn variable valve opening mechanism are rare, which is manifested by increased noise. Sometimes a faulty ignition module also occurs, resulting in more difficult engine starting as well as improper engine operation. In the case of turbocharged engine, problems with turbocharging can occur at higher mileage, which is generally signaled by lower engine power or uneven engine flow. In the case of the 1.6 direct injection SIDI engine, there were frequent noise/throbbing problems at the outset, which was largely solved by installing new engine control software by replacing the spark plugs. In the case of the 1.4 turbo engine, the engine ventilation problem occurs at higher mileage, leading to a slight increase in oil consumption, or an air sensor error message. The problem is either a dysfunctional check valve or a non-sealing hose. The turbocharged 2.0 CDTI 81 kW, A20 DTC 96 kW A20 DTJ, and 118 WK A20 DTH engines have a problem with the turbocharger hose. This is reflected by a flow meter error or a particle filter pressure sensor error message. The error should not be ignored, as there is a risk of accelerated clogging of the DPF filter. Occasionally there may be a problem with the turbine pressure control solenoid valve, resulting in uneven thrust and a charge pressure error message. More frequent driving over shorter distances leads to problems with the EGR valve, poor operation, jerking or switching to safety mode with the ignition of the engine fault bulbs. Higher mileage diesel engines can have problems with common rail injectors that wear excessively, leading to uneven and noisy engine operation. Poor start or failure due to excessive diesel overflow. With increased mileage, the risk of wear of the turbocharger or floating flywheel increases. Increased vibration at idle or excessive noise when accelerating from lower speeds. Problems with engine heaters or pressure sensor EcoFlex version are rare. Sometimes there is a problem with engine lubrication, low oil pressure. This is due to excess air in the lubrication circuit due to a leak in the oil pump seal. Problems with DPF filters usually occur only at higher miles, over 250,000 kilometers. And if they occur at times, they are mainly the result of frequent short-haul trips where regeneration is often interrupted. The life of the DPF filter, of course, also affects the condition of the engine itself and its parts, injectors, turbo, EGR valve, etc. Filter problems are usually indicated by an indicator. The engine goes into emergency mode. The approximate end of a DPF filter usually occurs with an increased frequency of regeneration, with a slight increase in average consumption. It is recommended to change the GM decos to oil with a viscosity of 5W30 after 20,000 kilometers, or once a year, depending on which comes first. For vehicles that are more frequently used in the city or on a shorter road, it is recommended to shorten this interval to the poppy. 15 kilometers. In automatic transmissions, it is recommended that the transmission oil be changed for the first time after 90 kilometers, and then every 120,000 kilometers. For 60,000 kilometers, 1.8 V, 16 turbo CNG and 1.6 CDTI engines, a belt replacement interval of 2.0 kilometers or 150,000 years is used. In the case of the 6 turbo, 1.4 turbo LPG, 1.4 SIDI, 1.6 CDTI and 1.6 turbo engines, the maintenance-free chain requires replacement only when necessary. For all engines, it is recommended to replace the water pump at 2.8 kilometers. The air filter should be replaced with a puppy. 150,000 kilometers or 30,000 years. If you drive in a city or dusty environment, it is better to change the filter with each change of oil. It is recommended to change the cab filter max 1 kilometer or every 30,000 years. 30,000 kilometers or every 1 year. Otherwise, there is increased window fogging and dirt deposits on the air conditioner and evaporator, increased odor.
Don't forget to subscribe my channel, and if you're the owner of this car, then share your experience. It will help others to choose a car. Goodbye.